So for today's video, I'm going to be testing out these Oros 66 markers from Arrtx. Thank you Arrtx for sending me these. I was always fascinated. I've seen many different artists using these markers. I've seen this set, this is the Pastel set, and I've seen multiple sets of theirs and I haven't had the chance to try them out yet, but I did today, and as you can see they arrive all jumbled up. There's almost no order, so I wanted to order them first, kind of. I should have really done it by the numbers or after doing swatches, because as you'll see later on, once I do the ordering, I do them by the like shades of the caps, and then when I went to go and do the swatches, they are all over the place because the caps are not 100% accurate. Some appear a bit lighter than what they are actually, and the other way around. Some are a bit darker on the cap than they are when you swatch it, but it's fine. Like, I didn't use the given paper to do the swatches because I don't know, I just found it a little bit awkward, but I might still use that one because of the way that I did my swatches. It's I didn't plan it out, honestly. I was just too excited, so I wanted to get on with it. But yes, this is the markers. So you get two sides. One is a chisel and the other one is a brush side. Brush is my preferred method of using alcohol markers. I just find it the easiest to blend. But other than that, they are pretty cool. And yeah, as you can see, I can fit the papers back into the box so that I can use them for future reference. I also tested them out to see if they will bleed or do anything with fine liners. I used the Ohuhu fine liner and also water-based fine liners, so I just wanted to test out how alcohol-y it is, but they actually turned out pretty good. Okay, so this is what I've come up with. This took me way too long, literal hours. I did start filming the process at the start, but I messed it up. So when I started sketching for the first time, I messed it up. I drew it too big, and then I kind of, once I started to get really into the sketching process, I just completely abandoned the filming because I was too focused on the drawing. And yeah, so these are my elements. I've got a little fox character, and then I've got this character in the middle. She's kind of floating, so she'll be like kind of levitating a little bit off the ground. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And then I've got like a couple of elements. I don't know why, but this made me this was inspired slightly by Freerun. I've been really loving the show. I've almost finished it. I think I've got a couple episodes left, or even just one. And yeah, I kind of wanted to draw something magic-y and like ancient, so yeah, I kind of went with a couple of elements in there to kind of make it, because I wanna paint these as like gold effects or like silver effects. I'm not too sure yet, but yeah, let's see what we can create. So the first thing that I usually do when I'm using pencil is I'll use a kneadable eraser just to like get the most of the graphite off, because usually when I use alcohol markers the pencil will smudge. I didn't test the smudge test of pencils for this piece, but you'll see a little bit of smudging with colored pencil in my next drawing. But yeah, the paper that I'm using is specifically made for alcohol markers because there is zero bleed proof, like that they don't bleed through at all through this paper. However, what I don't like about this paper is when you lay down the colors first, they appear really, really dark just purely because of the alcohol, and the color just looks really dark until it completely dries and then it lightens up. You'll see it in the face. It's just, you know, it looks crazy at first, but then it dries and it's almost like you can't see it at all. It's a good thing maybe if you need to really see where you're laying your colors down, but for me, I really actually don't enjoy this process, and this is what made me want to try it on different paper. But yeah, you can see the switch up between the two shots. The previous was so dark, like the legs now, and then in the next frame they'll dry up and they'll be so light you'll hardly even be able to see. So this set consists of 66 pastel colors, well, 65, and then you'll get one that's black. And I found this very interesting because I don't see in what way you'd be able to use the black with such crazy pastel like colors. You get so many different variations of colors, and then you just get one really dark black. I found that very confusing. I feel like they could have added like one that's maybe a darker gray, but not black. I feel like that's crazy, because I could see their vision is like black and white, because you get the colorless blender and then you'll get a black, right, which is like the black and white in usual sets like acrylic markers, but for alcohol markers that just doesn't work in my opinion. And you know what, now that I think of it, I used to use alcohol markers a lot. Like in my previous sketchbooks like a year ago, they are pretty much the only thing that I used, and I never got around to using the black alcohol marker. I always use like brush pens and things, but not alcohol marker specifically. I just find it the most useless marker out of all of them for the things that I do. And at the time I also did a lot of people and like portraiture and characters and things like that, but yeah, never found the black marker useful at all. But yeah, so my method for these was to just mess around. Again, I'm so rusty with alcohol markers as a whole. I'm more of a painter these days. I illustrate things with like paint, inks and watercolors and things like that, and it's interesting how much my over time I've changed different mediums, and I still love a lot of the things that I used to do in the past, but I just haven't like rotated back to them. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I get bored after a while unless it's something that I'm really like interested in. Like I still love gouache, but I actually haven't used it in a while. I think I burnt myself out a little bit during the Peachtober and just the October challenges, and because I use them every single day, I feel like I kind of burnt myself out slightly just because I just haven't picked them up since, and it's been like 2 months. But yeah, other than that, I've always loved painting, so it's interesting to see how that like goes back around. I'll be interested in one medium for a while, for like a long period of time, and then I'll stop using that medium, move on to something else. Whereas recently I've actually been like into painting a lot. Like I really enjoy the look of painting, and I find it really nice and like calming. But I'll drop in things like alcohol markers or acrylic markers quite often, and yeah, I don't know, it's kind of interesting because markers are just so easy to pick up. You don't have to do anything, you just pick up the marker and go. Whereas for paint, I feel like you have to set up, you have to have, you know, all the tools, all the paint brushes, everything around you, the palettes and everything. It just clutters up the space and takes a while. Whereas for markers, you just pull them out and you're ready to go. So these markers are pretty good. I found that the nibs of the brush pens started to bend and ease up after a while, especially after doing the background and the blockier, bigger shapes. They definitely come a bit more loose than they were at the start, which also kind of indicates that they will become very like spongy after a while, which is not a bad thing. I feel like that's kind of what I resonate with the Copics, because they're very soft. whereas like the other markers, the alcohol ohuhu markers, and these, they do come very firm at first, and then as you keep molding them into shape, they kind of loosen up, and yeah. But other than that, I think they're pretty good. I did really struggle with the fact that they're all pastel. I'm not very good with light colors. I'm very like heavy-handed with my colors, and I love to build them up and make them like very contrasty, and that leads me into this fox character. I can't believe how much I struggled with this fox. I don't know what happened. Maybe I just wasn't warmed up enough or something, because the fox just turned out awful. I hate it. Like, I don't know why I did what I did for it, but it just does not look good at all, so I kind of just abandoned it as a whole. I didn't even want to like carry on, but I do like the final result. Like, the composition is kind of nice. I do think it looks a bit like, I don't know, a little bit messy, but again, I don't know. I definitely could have done things better, but I just wanted to get in with the markers. I didn't really think about it. But yeah, the sketch took me way too long to do, and I think by the time I had already done the sketch, I was kind of bored already, if that makes sense. I just kind of wanted it to be over already. So yeah, I kind of took element by element to paint this, and kind of color by color essentially, like the golds and then the blues, and then yeah. I also noticed that the background kind of doesn't give too much of a contrast, so I do go in and change it, and I think that was a bad move, because now that I'm looking at the footage back, I kind of really do like the pink background, and I feel like I could have stuck with it a bit longer to see what it looks like in the end, but oh well. But yeah, I'm happy with these markers. I will definitely use them more and see how I get on and how the nibs stay in form or whatever, and maybe, just maybe, I will come back and redeem this fox character and draw her again. And yeah, I don't know, it's one of those where I'm just like, oh, I wish I could have like focused a little bit more. I also showed about the markers. The caps don't fit on the end, so that is something that's really annoying. I feel like I that's the first thing that I always do. I recap the marker on the other end, and these markers you can't do that, which is a little bit sad. I feel like that's a design flaw, because with the other alcohol markers that I use, obviously they're double-ended, but you can still recap it on the end, and I find that very useful so that I don't have to hold the cap the whole time. I also really struggled drawing the hands of this character. Like, if you're looking at it straight down, her left hand was fine, the one that's pointing towards the sword, but the other hand I really struggled because of the perspective, so I actually took my own like references and tried to imitate it. Look, hands are probably the hardest things you can draw, and if you can't draw hands, don't feel bad, because most of the people can't draw hands very well, especially if you're using like very loose references. I think regardless of what you do, you will always struggle drawing hands. There's angles that are just so like hard to perceive and like put down, no matter how much you try. And I can tell you for a fact, I tried so many times without like a real reference, and I just couldn't do it, so I had to use my own, and then I kind of got there in the end. I think it got to a point where I drew the last one and I was like, you know what, this has to be it. Like, I'm not redrawing this thing again. So yeah, I just kind of stuck to it. And then here I'm outlining the character, and you know what, I really wish I used a lighter fine liner for the hair, because I feel like it would have stood out really nice. And yeah, I really like the way that she stands out a lot, and I kind of wish I didn't outline everything in the image, because I feel like she's like the main character. She could have definitely stayed the most fine lined in the piece. But yeah, I really liked the way that her face came out after I finished fine lining, but it's interesting to see it come together and change. This really reminds me, like the pose and the golds and like the armory type things, really remind me of the days when I used to do a lot of the League of Legends redraws. I did them a lot to kind of study shapes and study anatomy of the way that these game developers draw the characters and the dynamic poses, and the like just the way that they build their characters is so fascinating to me. And I used to do a lot of redraws, which, you know, helped me a lot to kind of understand. And yeah, this really did remind me of that. So here I am redoing the background, and my thought was, you know, the purples and the blue in the character kind of maybe clash a little bit with the pink background. So in my head I was like, you know, what's the opposite of like purple and blue, which would probably be something like orangey yellow. So that was kind of my idea. I wanted to bring in a bit more of a yellow tone for the background, and I shouldn't have. And now that I look at it, I wish I had done it at least as a gradient, where like, you know, pink on the edges or pink on the inside. And yeah, done it like that, but it is what it is. And then now I'm using the Arrtx pencils, the color pencils, where I'm bringing in extra details, and this always helps. I do this pretty much with every piece that I do to bring in that extra texture. I really love the texture of pencils and like soft crayons and things in the finished paintings or pieces, just to bring in an extra like visual element, and I think it really does add something to it. And then this is where I went in with the fox again to kind of try and figure out what I did wrong, and then I carried on and made it even more wrong. And then I just had to move on. Okay, so I actually found it really difficult to use the markers on the other paper, or I'm just really rusty with alcohol markers, so I wanted to test it out on this paper. This is the 100% cotton that I mentioned in the last video. I'll link it up here, and I just wanted to test some of the markers and see what they're like on this paper. Granted, I might actually, no, I'll just do it on here. Okay, so I was wondering how it would spread. So it does bleed, like if I do more layers it will definitely come through, but I kind of want to test something out on this paper instead, just to see what it will look like, and then yeah, I'll go from there. So for this drawing, I wanted to do a little quick figure. I'm not gonna draw hands. No, I did draw a hand, but it's very quick and actually didn't take much time, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I just wanted to draw a very quick character, kind of doing similar elements, doing a little sword and like a little necklace or something on the side, little trinkets. And yeah, I did use a reference from Pinterest for this one, and yeah, kind of loosely based it on the character, even though I did use the clothes that she had, because I think it was kind of like a warrior type shoot or something. But yeah, I very loosely referenced just to get going with this piece. But for this one, it was a little bit on the other end, where the marker spreads on the paper, because the paper's so soft and like not made for alcohol markers. I can tell you that. It's made for acrylic markers for sure. And yeah, I did enjoy this one a bit more, I think, because it just looks a lot softer, and I didn't really have to do too much effort in blending or anything like that, because it kind of like spreads and goes together very nicely. But I did struggle with like the highlights and stuff in the hair, because they do spread and then it almost disappears, so I'm glad that it didn't, but almost. And then yeah, in like later on you'll see as well, when I'm trying to blend in the clothes and stuff, it kind of like defines it really like exact, like the color just sits on top and disperses everything underneath, whereas usually you can kind of layer the color, right? So that like if you layer, for example, like a pink and then you go over it with a blue, it should kind of make a purple, whereas in here it kind of does, like, it really emphasizes the color that you put on top. It doesn't like layer or like glaze. I don't know how to explain it, but I hope you understand what I mean. But other than that, I actually had a lot more fun for this one. I don't know why, maybe it's because it was way more relaxed and I sketched it in about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes and then I just went with it. Whereas the other one took me hours to sketch, and by the time I got around to painting it, to colouring it in, I was already kind of over it. So yeah, maybe there's something to be learnt there to like go a bit more loose and a bit more open-minded kind of with it. But other than that, I had great fun. Very frustrating, but I learned a lot of lessons and that's the most important thing. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll keep you all updated about my schedule for videos. I'm going to be posting a few more videos over the Christmas period, so I hope you tune in. But yeah, thank you so much to Arrtx for sending me these markers. They were a lot of fun and I'll definitely get more use out of them soon. Maybe give them more justice, but other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.